The next panel is gonna blow your minds. We have Trey Musgrave, who's a community organizer for Bitcoin District. We have Tom Conley, who is a colonel in the DC Air National Guard. We have GENZBTC, who is an incredible Bitcoin educator. We have Halston Valencia, who's the marketing director at Bitcoin Well. And finally, we have John Balkam, who's gonna be moderating this panel, who is the CMO at Sovreign. They are gonna be talking about the new American dream. Please put your hands together for our next panel as they enter the stage.
DC, how we feeling? I know it's a little late in the day, day two, but it's great to see you guys. My name is John Balkam. I'm the Chief Marketing Officer at Sovreign. And really quick, I just want to say, as a native of DC, I've lived here my entire life. I want to thank the organizers at GW for organizing BTC in DC, because we can actually feel at home as Bitcoiners in the District of Columbia. And it's great to have you all here with us to celebrate the first one. So I'm going to introduce our esteemed panelists here momentarily, but I just want to give you a quick, I want to set the table for you guys real quick. So we're sitting here in the Kennedy Center, and I don't know if you guys saw on the way in, there's the sign that says the nation's cultural center. So what we want to do on this panel might be a little bit different from what you've heard the rest of the conference. We want to talk about the nation's culture. And money and Bitcoin are, at the end of the day, just tools. They're tools that we use as society to coordinate and cooperate, but they are just one part of our culture. Our culture is also our families, our friends, what we work on, how we spend our leisure time. Our culture is the future that we build for the next generation. Our culture is how we treat each other day to day, especially those who we're not closely related to. So let's talk about the current social and cultural climate of America. Unfortunately, several trends show that the American dream of our parents and grandparents is becoming out of reach for younger generations. So we want to show you a couple data points that demonstrate how the old American dream is starting to become out of reach. We see that marriage rates are on the decline. Fewer Americans are getting married. As you can see, it's been a downward slope really since 1949. Americans are having fewer kids. The fertility rate for Americans reached an all-time low. I believe that says in 2023. On top of that, home ownership is becoming out of reach for most young Americans, right? Ever since the 2008 financial crisis, and really since COVID as well, with inflation ripping, if you're under 35 in America, home ownership is pretty much out of reach for you. And last but not least, I don't know if you all saw this poll by the Wall Street Journal just a few weeks ago. Only 1 in 4 Americans believe that they can actually improve their standard of living in this country, which is pretty insane when you think about that can-do American spirit that we used to have in this country, that was common in this country, seems to be pretty much, out the window for most Americans. So the pillars of the old American dream, marriage, children, home ownership, and that optimistic can-do American spirit are no longer achieved or within reach for most Americans. So the question I want to pose to our panel is if the old American dream is out of reach for most people, where does our country go next? So let's introduce our panelists and let's hear their stories. Let's talk about how Bitcoin can help us reinvigorate the country and help develop a brighter future for Americans. So Halston, please.
Yes. Yeah, my name is Halston Valencia. I'm a recent college grad, and I found Bitcoin right after my junior year. I read Broken Money for the first time and was studying business economics at the time. And so I was reading the book and then simultaneously comparing it to the courses, and I realized there was something incredibly broken with our system. And so I was, first-gen college student. I worked 3 jobs in college just to get by and tried to do my best to, pay my way through college and found Bitcoin. And for me, it was a means of hope. It was a lifeline of hope and trust. And so now I'm working in this space full time and have been blessed to work as a marketing director for Adam O'Brien and the Bitcoin Well. And yeah, just so grateful to be here.
Awesome.
Nice to meet you all. My name is Jordan. My handle online is GENZBTC. And really what I try to do is focus on Bitcoin education for younger people, right? Because we're the ones who need it the most. When you look at inflation and the way that it's affected our ability to get in touch with the American dream, to capture the things like a relationship that's sustainable, ownership of housing, ownership of a new house, being able to have children, to take care of those children, to cover the medical care, all these things are further escaping us, right? And my generation is so confused, right? That's what I would say when we talk about taking the temperature of the country, how they feel about the American dream. People are confused at my age. They're looking for someone to blame, and they don't exactly know where this is coming from. They can just feel that something's wrong, right? They did all the things they were supposed to. They went to school, they got their decent grades. Even if they got good grades, they're still in the same situation, right? So I'm here to help people understand there is a way out, there is an alternative, and that's why we have Bitcoin.
Awesome. Tom.
Hey, good afternoon, everybody. Colonel Tom Conley, DC Air National Guard. I grew up in Pennsylvania, went to Penn State, studied engineering there, graduated with a ticket to pilot training. So I learned to fly for the Air Force, got married, and then immediately was participating in operations Iraqi Freedom, Enduring Freedom. Got back from those, transitioned into the Air National Guard. And I've been a diplomatic airlift pilot for the last 20 years. And one of the unique things about being in the National Guard is you can start another career. So I joined the State Department in 2013. And currently, I'm in the Air Force, stationed at Joint Force Headquarters here in Washington, D.C. Now, how did I discover Bitcoin? I am not a recent college graduate. I was in grad school, actually at GW, as an MBA student during the great financial crisis. And so I got to see that unfold. I got to see our country's intervention and how poorly that worked. So again, in 2020, fast forwarding 12 years, our country started up another intervention, this time massive quantitative easing, 4 to 5 times bigger than the GFC from the early 2000s, or the 2000s. And I was a student, again, at the National Defense University College of Information and Cyberspace. And so there, senior officers are studying national security, of course. And we use it through the lens of DIME. So our instruments of power are diplomatic, informational, military, and economic. So most people focused on the first 3. I decided to examine the US dollar through the lens of the economic instrument of power. And what I proposed through my thesis, and it was a solid B+ paper, I proposed that the US dollar, we needed to do something bold. And it'll probably earn me some boos in this crowd, but at the time, in 2021, I recommended that the US create a CBDC called the digital dollar, but this time, not make it a fiat CBDC, back it with all the gold we could get our hands on, Bitcoin, and that actually didn't even match the national debt, or M2 of the year, like 15 trillion-ish. And so I proposed that we tokenize our natural parks and natural resources to get up to that massive number of 15 trillion. And so, yeah, I proposed that. I'm not even sure if I agree with my paper anymore, but it seems like a lot of these things are coming to fruition this year. I don't agree with the CBDC part anymore. All right.
And Trey, let's hear from you as well.
Hey everyone, thanks John, and thanks GW for having us. My name is Trey Musgrave. I live here in DC. I'm a community organizer for the local meetup here in DC. So can I get a shout out for Bitcoin District? Anyone in the audience?
Yeah.
I didn't grow up here though. I grew up in Alabama, went to the University of Alabama. I was recruited right out of college by the DoD. Spent 15 years of my life working there. Had an amazing job. I got to travel the globe. Wonderful opportunities there. And post-COVID, things kind of slowly changed as I kind of started to see, all the things happening with prices rising and we were locked down. I spent 3 months at home. So, like many of you who just got into Bitcoin around that time, I really started to go down all these rabbit holes. I listened to so many podcasts, and at some point I just kind of realized that Bitcoin is way more than than I thought it was. So fast forward a bit to this January. So after 15 years of working, I decided to leave my job and find my way in the Bitcoin space. And I ultimately landed on leaning into doing more community organizing. And I recently just launched a nonprofit here in DC called the Bitcoin District Initiative. And what we're doing is going door to door to a lot of small businesses, reaching out to individuals to try to bring them into Bitcoin. And we've had a lot of success so far. We've got a few businesses in DC that are accepting Bitcoin. So we're really just trying to do a lot of that outreach in the city. And it brings me a lot of joy and a lot of satisfaction. And I think for Bitcoin to be successful, for most people, they need to learn about it. They need to have a real person in front of them coming into their shop, telling them and educating them. Because if we just kind of leave it out to something on the internet, they're going to have a hard time trying to navigate and figure out exactly what it is. So we're really trying to humanize Bitcoin. So that's kind of my story.
Shout out to Trey. I was with him at brunch on Sunday, and he orange-pilled some guy selling cinnamon buns in Western Market. So anytime you see loose cinnamon buns, that was Trey. So now that we know everybody, let's take a little bit of a state of the union, right? So we demonstrated, we put those data points up there at the beginning to kind of talk about, like, the vibes are kind of off, guys, if I may say. So what was your reaction to, the data points that we put up there? What is your feeling about the country today?
Yeah, I mean, I think, it's kind of the reason why I fell into Bitcoin and I'm like holding on to it for dear life is because of those statistics. I'm 23 years old, I have a boyfriend, I would love to get married, I would love to have kids one day. And, for the longest time, I was in a dark place. It didn't feel like that was gonna be possible for me until I discovered Bitcoin. And then I realized that you can opt out and you can create wealth. I mean, I think those stats are disheartening and it can be discouraging for some. I think for me, I recognize that our generation specifically has been blessed with so many tools to build, to opt out. This is the first generation that has hard money. And so I, have my concerns with debt, inflation, all the, things and violence we see going on in the world, but I'm optimistic because we have this asset, and I think that's kind of my overall sentiment.
Jordan?
No, the sentiment is tough, but like I said, people are just confused more than anything. So if you did all the things that your parents and your teachers and everyone behind you was telling you to do, and then you don't get the results that you want, you feel like you've been tricked, you know what I mean? Like you've fallen for a psyop, and that's what a lot of people feel like, right? And that's why a lot of the Gen Zers, Gen Alpha people, they're waking up, because even though the people before them went through the motions and got the rewards after the fact, they're going through the motions and then not getting anything. There's no payoff. All you're left with is a bunch of student debt and some cats and then a studio apartment, you know what I mean? And it's just tough.
I live in a studio, Jordan.
No, and studios are great, you know what I mean? But, when you're trying to get out and you want ownership, right? We're a generation of renters, you know what I mean? We're a generation of people who are enslaved through our debt. Right? And I think that the education through Bitcoin is what helps you to see something more hopeful. It's more so of an actual avenue to be able to achieve what you have to do, because previously we had the 20th century route where, again, you go to school, you do this, you do that, you're good. You get a job at the factory, your wife can stay at home, one person income, everything's fine. That's not possible anymore. It's very difficult, especially in these a lot of major cities. Right, and Bitcoin is a way of giving younger people a little bit of hope. The way I tell a lot of young people is that Bitcoin is a digital asset that allows us to own all of the analog assets that we're chasing, right? Because you do want a roof over your head, right? You do want shelter, you do want a car, you do want transportation, you do want freedom to do what you want to do. And when you look at the amount of productivity that's available in our country, right, the productivity is going up, but our compensation is staying flat or going down. the ability for our dollar to stretch is staying flat or going down. So because of that, you're actually not free. You are a wage slave, right? You're a debt slave. And Bitcoin is the key to freedom. And as people start to understand that more, that's basically what we'll move towards. That's basically what we'll move towards. So that's what I want people to understand. I want young people to understand, don't be so hopeless, don't be a doomer. There is opportunity, there is a chance. You just have to be able to see it.
All right, John. The State of the Union. Let's see, October 1st. I'm on a day off from what you ask. I'm activated by the President of the United States for Operation Make DC Safe and Beautiful. And I will be right back out there tomorrow when this conference ends. The government is shut down. We have 8 other states here helping Safe and Beautiful. I don't think the State of the Union is normal right now. I think there should be 50 states here. This is way bigger than Bitcoin. This is our capital. This is your national capital. And so the National Guard, we will not shut down. We are the nation's link to the community through the military. And we will do this until the president says we're done. And then we'll help other states do it as well. It's a microcosm of what's happening in the rest of the country. And like I said, it's way bigger than Bitcoin. And so if you've got a couple of days before you fly home or drive home from this conference, come see me. I'll get you on our beautification task force. Because the National Guard can do a lot, but we're not going to be able to do everything. This is a culture shift. Have some pride in our cities. Have some pride in your nation's capital. And then eventually we'll get back to the Bitcoin story. But let's at least fix the country first.
Amen.
So I guess I'll answer your question with an analogy that I actually you had a little help with Grok on this, but so the American dream, I think, over the past however many decades has changed quite a lot, or at least the path to the American dream. I think everyone has their own idea of what an American dream is. Maybe you want the house and the kids and the car and the white picket fence. But the thing about the American dream is it isn't just about stability. I think a lot of people look at the American dream as something that's just very stable and predictable. But for a lot of people, the American dream is all about opportunity. And it's and the analogy was, think about the American dream as being, or it used to be, a very sturdy ladder. And you used to be able to climb that ladder. Each rung of that ladder was progress. It was, you got a job, or you graduated high school, you got a job, you were able to buy a car, you went to college, you got a real job after college, you bought a house, you married your significant other, you raised a kid, you got the dog. All these steps in the ladder were very achievable, and as long as you just kept working at it, you could continue to climb the ladder. But over time, as money got debased and life got harder, that ladder got a little bit wobbly. It got very slippery. It was harder to climb. And then fast forward even further, look at all the inflation with post-2008 and the COVID stimulus. Now it seems like that ladder is shrunk down to a pole, and it's a lot harder to climb a pole than it is a sturdy ladder. You could climb up a bit, but you get tired. It's harder to hang on. And eventually, I think that pole is now been greased. Now it's very hard to just stay on the pole. You fall down. Bitcoin comes in like a grappling hook that's tied to your belt. And when you hit those pockets of grease on that pole, you can reach down for that grappling hook and throw it up and kind of get through those tough times. So that's kind of how I see things going.
So let me ask you guys, and I'm going to start with Trey, and we'll work our way back. So I think for a lot of us, when we discover Bitcoin, there's like a before and after. And there's a certain way that we think and a certain outlook that we have on life before we come to Bitcoin, and then after we, go down the rabbit hole, take the orange pill, etc. So talk about, Trey, what was your outlook for the future in this country before you got into Bitcoin, and then how did that change, and how has that perspective shifted after you got into Bitcoin?
Yeah, so I would say, many years ago, while I was, fresh out of college and I had just gotten into my new job, I never really looked that far ahead, maybe 6 months, a year, 2 years. So I never really, I just kind of like took life how it went. But, as time passed, I started to kind of think about, what I want to do with my life. And, but over time, as time passed and my career progressed, I guess things felt stable. I had a 9-to-5 job. I went and did my job, did it very well. I would come home, but it was a very stable life, I guess. Post Bitcoin, I transitioned from that like stable view of life to that very opportunistic view of life. Now I have hopes and dreams and things that I want to do, and now I can dream more. Before it was more about that stability. A lot of people today, they have a job and they're tied to that job because they're scared to leave because they don't know if they're going to lose their insurance benefits. Maybe they have a family. Like, that's devastating for you to even think about leaving a job and chasing a different opportunity. So that's what I would say.
Tom, how about for you?
Yeah, so on the very similar thread as Trey, actually my first job, we're talking late 80s, early 90s here. I was in 6th grade. I was a paper boy. And for those of you who are unfamiliar with this ancient line of work, I used to get up early, deliver newspapers, and then I'd have to go back out on the weekend and collect the money from the people, And so I did that, and my hobby at the time was coin collecting. And so unintentionally did I know I was preserving the fruits of my labor through the best asset at the time, which was gold and silver, preserving my paper route salary from the 90s to, I actually have some of those coins still. And that was basically a gateway drug to sound money principles. So I was a Bitcoiner in the 90s, I just didn't know it yet. But really, like, pre and post Bitcoin, my perception of the American dream and what you should do isn't gonna change a whole lot. Study hard, get good grades, go to college, serve your country, maybe that's a little bit different, get married, get married, start a family, work hard, save and invest, and I think the only thing I would change is keep saving your money, but get to know cold storage, run a node, and save in Bitcoin.
Amen.
Yeah. Before Bitcoin, I had a bunch of different one-off like warehouse jobs and big box retailer jobs, and then I was lucky enough to land my current job as a transportation specialist, as a freight broker. But in terms of being able to envision what I was gonna do with my life, it was kind of just, and I'm sure a lot of young people can agree with this, it was kind of just like, I'm probably gonna make a lot of money, but I don't really know how I'm gonna do it. You know what I mean? It's definitely not with my degree, right? It was just like wishful thinking almost, you know what I mean? It's like, I'm gonna make it, but I don't really know how. I'm just kind of gonna wing it, and it should be fine, right? And I think a lot of people are kind of going through that. You don't even need to be a young person to kind of think that. There's probably some a little bit older people who are maybe still winging it a little bit, you know what I mean? But I think Bitcoin kind of gives you that direct path. It gives you a clearer vision. It lets you see a light at the end of a tunnel that has, a lot of obstacles in it. For anyone in here who's discovered Bitcoin and really went down the rabbit hole and then it clicks for you, I don't know if you agree, but it felt like Christmas for me. You know what I mean? When you figure out how powerful Bitcoin is, how great of a new technology this is, how much freedom that this gives you, the ability to actually hold your money, no one else can stop it, and it stores its value through time, that is a paradigm shift. So for me to be alive at the same time as the paradigm shift is super rare, and I'm very thankful. And because I'm able to see that, it gives me so much optimism. It gives me so much energy. I feel invigorated about the future. I feel like it is my mission to kind of try to educate people, get them to understand and see what I see, because whether or not they get it, it doesn't change the fact that it is happening, right? If we go back to the early 90s, and you're the crazy guy talking about how the internet is going to take over and how you need to make a website for your company if you actually want to sell and expand and scale, there's some people who are going to get it, and there's some people who aren't going to get it. The people who don't get it, it's going to be hard for them to make it. But everyone that you care about, everyone that you want to see succeed, everyone that you want to see win, even people that you don't know, you want to tell them about Bitcoin, help them to understand it, and then see the vision because you want to share the same hopefulness that it gave you to other people.
I'm loving the energy out of Jordan right here. Halston, let's go to you.
Yeah, I think similar to these guys, in college, I was just like, I made my mind, I was like, I'm not gonna ever have kids, I'm not gonna get married, because I, spent 5 years at a private university, and I was like, I'm tied to this student debt, oh my goodness, the thought of being a mom and working full-time sounded miserable, and I didn't wanna have to do that. And so then discovering Bitcoin, I definitely became a lot more hopeful, and now Jordan was saying, I've seen a paradigm shift within myself, and I see the new American dream as not necessarily buying a house and doing all the things and getting all the assets. It's more so like freedom of choice. Like now I have the freedom to become a mom if I want to one day and not have to work. I have the freedom to pursue this career, if you will, in this space and take a pay cut from a lucrative career. I used to work in Hollywood and was making some good money and decided that didn't really align with what I wanted. And so then I could pivot into Bitcoin. And the reason why I can do that is because, I get paid in Bitcoin. It's great. And, this is just, it's been, it's just such a blessing because it's just a means of hope for my generation specifically. We have more tools than ever to succeed.
So you kind of were leading into my next question, and we have this amazing panel here in the nation's capital. We're at the Kennedy Center. We're talking about pretty lofty things here, like almost a new vision for how we might live and work and be together in American society. So let's start with Halston and work our way back down the other way. What's your personal definition for the new American dream? And are we gonna kind of take on the wisdom of our parents and grandparents, and maybe it's just like we can access what our parents and grandparents did? Or do you think that society will evolve as Bitcoin adoption grows in the country?
Yeah, to answer the first question, I think my new definition is freedom of choice. I think Bitcoin is gonna provide a means and opportunity for more people to pursue the things that they are truly passionate about. We don't have a lot of kids nowadays saying, oh, I wanna be an artist. You just don't see that because they know that that's not gonna provide them with a lifestyle where they can survive and live comfortably. And so I think that, Bitcoin is gonna provide that path, if you will. And what was the second part of your question?
Do you think that we're gonna just kind of do a rerun of what our parents and grandparents enjoyed? And not to say that everybody did, right? Everyone struggled and everyone worked hard to achieve the American dream. It's just, are we gonna, use grandma's wisdom and kind of go, it'll be like everybody can get back to where we once were? Or do you think society will evolve, American society will evolve in new ways? Yeah, no, I think we're evolving. And, my grandma, back in the day, she was able to get her house for some berries and a chicken. It's just ridiculous. And it's like, it's unfair, yes, but I think that with Bitcoin, there's no more excuses. We do have that same opportunity. And I think, right now, 10 times, the average cost of a house is 10 times the average salary. Back in the day, it was only 2 to 3 times the average salary. And so I definitely think you have to evolve as a society and you have to adopt real hard money. And my definition of the new American dream is freedom of choice. Yeah. Beautiful. Yeah.
My definition of the American dream, and I think this is going to relate to a lot of people in the 21st century, it's going to be Bitcoin ownership, right? So the new American dream is one Bitcoin. You know what I mean? Before, the American dream was a 2-story house and, the white picket fence and all this different stuff. The new American dream is digital assets. The previous American dream was analog assets. So I think the people today who own 1 Bitcoin, 2 Bitcoin, half of a Bitcoin, as we go through time, this kind of relates to what Halston was talking about. It gives you more freedom. It gives you freedom of movement. Not only do you have the option to live in the US, but you can actually live outside of the US. I know we're talking about the American dream, but Bitcoin's a global asset, right? So if you want to live somewhere else, you have the freedom to take your money very easily, very quickly. It's very light, it's digital, it moves at the speed of light, so you can take it with you. You can take it with you in your head if you needed to flee wherever you lived. You know what I mean? So Bitcoin is about freedom of choice. If you hate your job, you can walk away from your job. You know what I mean? You're not stuck at your job when you're a Bitcoiner. You are an employment risk when you are a Bitcoiner. You know what I mean? Your boss has to respect you a little bit more when you're a Bitcoiner. So I would say, again, it's just freedom. Freedom to do what you would like to do. It gives you the optionality. And I think that when you are posed with the question of buying the house or buying the Bitcoin, you might choose to stick with the apartment for a little bit while you stack sats. And I just think that the adoption of Bitcoin, that curve is just going to continue to expand outward. I think that will be the new American dream. And as we go through time, half of Bitcoin will be the American dream. 10% of a Bitcoin will be the American dream, because they're going to continue to print dollars and devalue our currency. That's what gives Bitcoin a lot of its store of value property.
So for me, I think about this in a very similar manner as my colleagues here, but also through the lens of my 15-year-old. So for all of you who have kids, I'm sure you can think about this the same way. The new American dream for my children, our nation's children, for me, and they could easily see the year 2100. And we've got a long way to go between now and then. So I would be happy if my son achieved the 3 F's. So freedom, flexibility, and fulfillment. So freedom, if you're getting to know me, I'm going to talk about the Constitution and being free under the US Constitution. Flexibility, that's more about work-life balance. And then fulfillment, obviously, choose a career and a partner who makes you happy for your lifetime. And then, John, you're kind of alluding to the rest of the country's American dream. I'm going to talk about it like the US is going to have a standing army as long as we are a nation state. And so we can all have our own personal American dreams, but we're going to need the military. I think everyone can agree on that. And I'm optimistic that with Bitcoin, we can recruit and retain the best service members for all branches of the US military. There is historical precedent. Kings and queens used to pay their soldiers in gold and silver. And at some point, our nation decided to pay us in fiat, and nobody blinked. But now we have the chance we should have the option to receive our military paychecks in Bitcoin. And if that's too much of a stretch, because that would involve a lot of orange pilling, just put it into our retirement account. So 0.1 for every year of faithful service and honorable duty. And I think that will keep, it's kept me in the military, so I know it'll work, and it'll keep our best service members from leaving the military to chase a private sector salary.
So the way I look at the American dream for me, I want to double tap on the optionality. I think when people have the option to chase the things that they're interested in, the things that they care about, I think that that just breeds a better society. When people are forced, where people feel like they're forced in a position where they can't escape and they're struggling and they don't have the time and the energy to chase their dreams, I think that's just kind of very bad for society overall. But I think also, I think we're living in sort of a scarcity of abundance kind of era where there's not as much human thriving and a lot of that chasing of opportunity that we used to have in the country. It feels very unattainable for most people. The way I look at Bitcoin over time, like what Halston said, it's like an evolution. And I think we're going to evolve into more of an abundance through scarcity that's fueled by Bitcoin. So it's exciting.
I'll throw my 2 cents in here as well, guys. The new American dream is every individual, every family, every small business, every church, every community group, every entity in this country owning some Bitcoin in self-custody, and we will have a peaceful, abundant, prosperous country.
I'm down for that.
How does that sound? We got a lot of work to do to get there, but the vision is there. And what I want to kind of wrap up, and we got about 5 minutes left here, is, we tailored this conversation and this panel for younger Americans. And so let's just say that we have, one message that we want to share to young Americans, probably 35, 40 and under. Like, we've all been down that road. We've kind of gone on personal journeys to discover Bitcoin, use it as a tool for improving our lives in America. but what message would you share to other young Americans who maybe haven't discovered Bitcoin yet, or are still, kind of, feeling like their goals are out of reach and things are kind of hopeless in this country? What would you say?
Yeah, I think for me, I would say, 1, don't be a doomer. 2, learn about Bitcoin. I am a strong believer in that the purest form of Bitcoin is just purchasing Bitcoin and storing it in cold storage. That is the purest form. All these other, companies are great and all, and I'm not going to bash on treasuries, but buy Bitcoin, store it in cold storage. I think, my generation loves to point fingers at the boomers, and yeah, it's unfair. They were able to buy houses for super cheap, but we also have been blessed with more tools than ever. We have the internet for reach. We can tap into global audiences and just with the touch of a button. We have AI. We can build things quicker than ever. We can start a business anytime we want. And we have incorruptible money. We have Bitcoin. This is the first generation that has that foundation. And so I think my message to young Americans would be, don't give up, don't fall into the trap of doomerism, and don't settle for survival, but rather build for sovereignty, build for that freedom of choice.
Amen.
My message to any young people, middle-aged people, old people, it's pretty much all the same. You just need to lock in, right? You just need to lock in. And what do I mean by that? I mean you need to study Bitcoin, right? Most people I talk to, they tell me, should I buy it right now? Should I sell it later? And my answer is always, well, you should learn about it, right? Are you just buying something that you don't understand at all? That's a horrible idea because you're going to buy it high and then you're going to sell it low because it goes down 5%. You don't know what's going on. So there's a bigger picture here, right? We determine the Bitcoin price and we monitor it in dollars, but it's really about stacking sats. On my YouTube channel, every video I end, I say stack sats or die trying, because that's what's going to really matter. You know what I mean? Before it was get rich or die trying. Now we're trying to stack sats or die trying, because in the future, they're going to be asking you, how many Satoshis do you have? How many pieces of a Bitcoin do you have? Oh, you have 10% of a Bitcoin? Oh, you're so lucky, right? We talk about the boomers being able to buy their house for cheap back in the day. We have the opportunity to buy something for 100,000 that's going to $1 million, that's going to multi-millions, right? So if you understand that and how it gets there, then you'll understand that you need to be stacking sats at all times. So that's what I'd say. No matter how old or how young you are, if you're listening to this, you're very early. So.
For me, I'd like to build on stacking sats, but that's not everything. I would advise the millennials and Gen Z out there, step 1, be a good person. Step 2, respect and honor the Constitution of the United States. Honor the Founding Fathers. We've got monuments, George Washington, Thomas Jefferson. They are dying to be at this conference. This is freedom money. Bitcoin can defend the Constitution. And I've got lots of crazy ideas for the Air Force, mining, but we'll do that another time. Follow the rules, like the Constitution, local rules. That falls under the umbrella of being a good person. And then finally, save in Bitcoin, get to know cold storage, and run a node.
Amen.
Some awesome advice. I guess I'll say also to young people, but really anyone, if you're sort of like walking through life and you feel confused or you don't know what to know, or you see all these people on TV telling you that there's all these solutions to all these problems that we have, if none of that, if something feels off, and I think a lot of people kind of think that way, just start learning about Bitcoin. Bitcoin has a way of, as soon as you step your foot, to the edge of that rabbit hole and you start to kind of peek into it, it opens up so many parts of your brain that you didn't know could think that way. Think freely, be critical of things around you, ask questions, dream, be inspired. I'm sure everyone in this room has had their own Bitcoin sort of amazing journey, and I just want you to all just like sit and kind of absorb the moment of the time that we're in. And sometimes I do that and I get goosebumps, thinking of the world that we're going to have tomorrow. And I just want young people and all people to realize that there is so much hope, so much room for opportunity, prosperity, abundance. You just gotta peek down the rabbit hole. It's right there.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. So, remember at the beginning of the conversation here, we asked, where does our country go next? And I had a flashback. I wasn't here during Kennedy's presidency, but I did hear about how vital and optimistic and energetic the country was when he was the president. And some of you may remember this quote that he had during when the U.S. entered the space race of the USSR. He said, "We choose to go to the moon in this decade and do the other things, not because they are easy, but because they are hard." And what I think this Bitcoin age that we're entering in this country, it kind of gives me that feeling of like the space race, right? And so you know how we joke in the Bitcoin community, right? Like, we're going to the moon. Well, I had a little a spin on Kennedy's famous saying, "Bitcoin will go to the moon in this decade because it is not easy money, it is hard money. And Americans need hard money." Where is our country going next? We're going back to the moon. Thank you very, very much, everybody.
Thank you so much. Thank you, guys. Thank you.